I am very sure that if I told you that social media can have similar impact on your young person as smoking cigarette would, I'm sure you would refuse or reject all of that and maybe say something like, yeah, it's one of those self-proclaimed experts spouting some BS again online. But I'm sure if I told you that a team of expert top doctors in the UK have arrived at the same conclusion. And when I say top doctors, I'm talking about the Academy of Medical Royal Colleges. That's the same conclusion they came to. That social media can be as harmful to your child as smoking cigarettes. I'll let that just sink for a bit. Now, you know that a couple of years ago, smoking was a bit like, the top 10, what everybody else does. What makes you look cool, right? And then fast forward a couple of years, it became very clear. And now you pick up a cigarette pack and you see those gory pictures of rotten lungs and all of that on it. And it's clear that cigarettes can cause loads of damage. And that's a bit like the journey we are on with social media, where it's a hype, it's a big thing, it's a top thing. I remember my first access to a phone. It was like a big thing that everybody was looking up to. But now it's beginning to show that social media is a bit of a menace to society. So in this video, I'm not trying to cause panic. I'm not trying to be judgmental. What I'm trying to do is to show you the facts behind that conclusion, the science behind it, and just come at this with a very open mind. And hopefully by the end of the video, you would leave with some practical tips that will not just help you to identify if your young person is addicted, because it's the addiction, it's not the social media itself that is a problem. It's that point where your young person lost control of themselves and the social media begins to control them. That's when we get into problem territory. So I'm going to give you 3 tips that you can use to know if your young person has entered into the trouble territory, and then 3 tips that you can practically apply to help them. But before we proceed, I would like to encourage you to like the video so it can get to other people, to subscribe, to follow us, because every week we promise to bring you this kind of top, well-researched videos that would help you raise well-rounded, future-ready young people. So go ahead, hit those buttons, and we'll go into the main video now. So, if you are someone who follows the news, you would have heard that the UK has actually followed the steps of Australia and are putting in place a ban for social media for children under 16. And I'm sure some people would be wondering that children under 16, social media. Where it becomes troubling is what I see every day among young people, where children as young as 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old are being handed social media. And I understand the argument that some people put forward, because some children are struggling with some challenges, ADHD, autism, and all these other challenges, that parents find that the only way they can really help these young people is to, keep them busy with some of these apps. I recently worked with a parent whose child is autistic, and I saw the other side of the argument, because when the child starts kicking off, there are these apps and these things that the child goes on our smartphone that just keeps her calm. So I understand the fact that some parents, and in some unique cases, would have to use social media to be able to parent effectively. However, as it is the law always, exceptions do not define the rule. So what we're talking about here is parents and people who think it's just okay to hand a child some social media, some YouTube videos so they can be busy, and allow them to go spend time on their own social media or doing something that is not as important as some of us would expect. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. But in all of those extremes, the point remains that if you can keep your children off social media, you'll be doing them a great good. My daughter is 11 now, and we're still pushing. And what I'm about to discuss with you, some of the tips that I'm applying that are working on. So hopefully you will leave this video well equipped to do the same. So recently the UK has agreed on a ban for under 16s. And one of the comments that really caught my attention is the comments by a parent of one child who unfortunately did not survive the jungle of social media. And if you've been following news sometime in, I think it's 2021, Ollie Stevens, who, well, I'll just quickly read the dad's comment following the ban on social media, or the agreement to ban social media. I think it's going to come into effect next year. So this is what the dad said. It's been a long time coming. If we had this 10 years ago, when all of this tech was starting to surface, then a lot of us, our children, will still be here. And he's referring to a lot of campaigners who have sadly lost their children to one or two impacts of social media. I'll still have my son. There's no two ways about it. No child should be targeted under 16 for social media. It is addictive, it is corruptive, it is corrosive, and it's predatory. Is it predatory? Yes, predatory. Predator, right? And nothing captures this conversation like that parent's voice. I can't begin to imagine what it feels like to lose a child. The closest I've come to that is when my daughter went for surgery. So she was operated upon for appendicitis. And I remember walking into the theater, holding her hand, and when they were about to put her to sleep, anesthesia, yeah. And I held her hand, and they told me, I was talking to her, we're having a gist, and suddenly she just went, phew. And I couldn't control myself. I busted into tears, as old and as as manly as I thought I was. I busted into tears because that brought to life the possibility of losing my precious child. And so I can't begin to think about what parents go through when they lose a child. But imagine the pain of this dad. And that statement of saying, if this ban was in place 10 years ago, I would still have my child. And so, this position by the top doctors in the UK was arrived at partly because there's a research that looked at 132 doctors who said more than half of them attend to at least one case of a young person who has come to health harm as a result of either a device or some form of technology. In fact, more than 4 out of 10 of those doctors said they have had to deal with multiple cases per week of children who have come to harm as a result of tech or devices. So this is no child's play. And when we say harm, we're talking about things like children who get to the point of wanting to take their own lives, mental breakdown, body dysmorphia, where children begin to worry about how they look, sometimes too slim, sometimes they think they're too fat, eating disorder, all sorts of things, depression that young people experience because of the impact of social media. But the question then becomes, why is it so difficult to manage? Well, that's exactly what these doctors touched upon when they compared it to smoking. Social media, what it does is it appeals to that dopamine, that happiness hormone, that's hope, feel good hormone that helps us to feel good from time to time. When you come across something you enjoy, something you feel good about, it's that hormone that makes you want to do it again, dopamine. And the thing with dopamine is, it's not just the things you see or the presence of the things that stimulate the hormone. It's a case of how fast those things come and how unpredictable those things happen. And that's exactly what social media does. So every scroll, reward, every click, reward, every comment, reward, it's just this constant reward system that keeps you addicted. And the system, which I've talked about a lot already, is designed to keep feeding you with those things that would keep you glued to the system. Now, Look at nicotine, which is the element that makes cigarettes addictive. It appeals to the dopamine pathway of the brain. And so the same thing just hits you and just keeps you excited and keeps you asking for more. And so these doctors have come to this conclusion that the same effort, the same concern that we have over smoking. I can't think of any parent who would hand, well, I've seen a couple of irresponsible parents who have done that on social media. And again, that's the thing with social media, right? But it's rare to see any parents who would hand their children cigarettes. So how then do we think it's okay to allow your 5 years old to be locked in their room alone with a social media device? The story of Ole Stevens that I just talked about is a very, very heartbreaking one. And he was lured by a girl to, and the two boys who were eventually convicted for the horrific act, the whole fight started, they said, online, where they were doing this thing on social media where they say patterning, right? Where it's basically they pick on a child or on a young person, treat them in a demeaning way, maybe just, beat them or something, and record that, and then use that to just keep spreading it on social media to just to humiliate the young person. They call it patterning. That's exactly what was happening on his social media platform that he was part of. And he thought it was unfair, and so he forwarded the video of the child that was being, humiliated to his older brother. But eventually got to these two boys who committed the act. And they saw him as a snitch, and so that's why the thing led to some more arguments here and there, and they eventually arranged to do what they did. And looking at that story, at least 4 young lives were destroyed. Only in his own case, his life was taken. The other 3, 13 and 14, the girl who lured him was convicted for manslaughter. The 2 boys, I think they were sentenced for life, for all of that. So 4 lives destroyed. And in the police investigation, everything around the situation had something to do with social media. The row started on social media. The planning and execution were all on social media. The things the young boys who committed this heinous act were exposed to, unbelievably weird things that children should not come anywhere near. Those were the kind of things the young people were seeing and, planning and patterning and trying to do. And it just reinforces the thing we keep saying. That for an adult, you would see some things and your sense of judgment is so mature that you would say, no, this is not something to do. But for a young person whose brain, that part of rational reasoning is not fully developed yet, they do not think that way. So anything we can to keep them away from these things, we have to do those things. Well, let me quickly give you 3 tips that you can use to identify and to know if your young person is becoming addicted. Now, take note of this. The problem is not screen time. It is screen dependency. If you don't remember anything I say as a pointer to know if your young person is addicted, just remember the thing I've just said. It is not as much about screen time as it is about screen dependency. So point number 1 to look out for is loss of control. Can your young person control themselves when it comes to social media? When they tell you 5 minutes, does it end up becoming 20 hours? If you take it from them, do they break down? Do they pull down the house and turn everything upside down? That's number 1. Number 2, neglecting other interests. Does your young person get so busy on social media that they forget to eat? They forget to do their homework. They become untidy. Their rooms are kept messy. They do not do the things that interest them anymore. So your young person used to like football, used to like writing, used to like cooking, used to like fun time with friends. But now all they do is stay locked up in their rooms on their phones. That's problem territory. Number 3 is mood-driven use. So when your young person feels down, when they feel sad, when something goes wrong, they fail an exam or you have a fight with them or something, they go straight to their social media. They start using that social media as the thing, the escape from reality, the realities of life. That's problem territory. I'm sure there are more several other symptoms or things you could look out for. But these three, I think, would do for now. So now you know what to look out for. And let's say you've looked at this. And the next question then becomes, what do you do to help your young person? Now, let me quickly say that there are cases that you will need to seek help from a doctor or the experts. But I'll just give you three things that you could do to help your young person. Before I go to number one, obviously the first thing I would recommend is, and I've recommended this in other videos, is you need to model what you want to see. It's going to be very difficult for any of these things I'm going to show you now to work if you are also addicted to social media and you've got phone in your hands always, because your children will do what they see, not what you say. So point number one, you need to create a family media or technology plan. So simple rules like no phones in bedrooms, charging point is downstairs, no phones during lunch, things that you need to put in place to ensure that you're curbing that risk of addiction. The next thing you can do is you replace, not just remove. So it's easy for a lot of parents to just go take the phone from their young person. Well, if you've not given them a phone yet, good on you. But if already they have a phone and you watch this video and you think, I need to do something about my young person, my recommendation is not for you to go and take the phone and say, yeah, I'm keeping the phone, no more. No, you need to replace it with something else for them. So create time for board games, for outings, go for a walk, cook together, sports together, do things together. Create something that replaces the phone that you are going to take from them, or else there will be a mental breakdown. There will be a complete breakdown and you might get results that are contrary to what you're looking to get. Number three, you need to learn to start talking to your young person freely about the algorithm, how it works, and the impact of social media on other people's life. My daughter has been exposed, and I've shown her a lot of impact. When the under 16 ban was announced, we discussed it. The reason, some of the stories and things happening, I discussed them freely with her. The reason is because I understand that every day she goes out and she sees other children with phones and other things. And this is another good thing about this ban, because I've really struggled. You can imagine a class where everybody has a phone and your child doesn't have a phone. It becomes very difficult. And so with this ban now, hopefully the ones without the phone would become the norms and not the weirdos in the class. But every day you have to keep balancing that voice, because when they step out, there's a voice telling them, showing them, and teaching them how to have a social media and why to have access to social media. You have to keep that conversation balanced by constantly telling them why, showing them why, discussing why, listening to their concerns, listening to them, and giving them honest answers and feedback. And so I hope you would take this video, apply the things you've heard, look out for the symptoms of possible addiction, and start putting up plans in place to help your young person, because it is not just something you have to do. You owe your young person that responsibility. And please, I'd like you to comment below the exact things you're struggling with. What's the most difficult tech or social media struggles you're having in your house? Is it getting them to go to bed? What exactly are you dealing with? Just leave a comment below.